Welcome to the next recording, I think number 6 now, of my book Paolo and the Restoration of a Childlike Optimism. We are continuing today with chapter 3. Just a little information. The videos where I am speaking without my hat on, these are the German videos. I've just started to do a reading series in German as well. So when you're looking for your next video, you can ignore the ones where I don't wear a hat. Instead I will change my glasses there every time. So the ones with a hat, these are the English ones. So yesterday you found out that Friederike arrived home in Marburg, and now we're continuing with the next chapter. Simple things. I awake in pain. The first movement, and I emit a yelp like that of a cat whose tail got trapped in the door. If I don't move, it doesn't hurt. I know that from experience. And it's just muscle pain, I tell myself, nothing serious. A reaction to carrying so much yesterday, like sore muscles to the power of 1,000. It will be gone in a few days if I drink a lot and keep moving despite the pain. I clutch the mattress and pull myself into a sitting position, inhaling and exhaling air in rapid succession until I'm sitting upright. As I swing my feet to the floor, I cry out again, hoping my parents don't hear me. I don't need that now, because then Johannes spends hours in front of the computer to find a painkiller that doesn't trigger histamine, which doesn't exist, otherwise I would have taken it long ago. And my mother suffers. She suffers more than I do when I suffer. So it's important that she doesn't know if I'm hurting, because then I have to comfort her. I drag myself into the bathroom, which, wonder of wonders, has also undergone a transformation. All my mother's fragrant cream jars are gone, as are the fluffy carpets that always had so much cat hair in them. The bathroom is tidy for the first time since I moved out. I put my hand over my mouth to keep myself from crying out, close the bathroom door and start to undress. Not easy with one hand over your mouth. I need to change hands several times to get out of my pajamas. Then I step into the shower and let the hot water pelt my muscles. There's this book about this film that I read by an English author whose name I, of course, forgot. I don't remember the title of the book either. I only know what the cover looked like, mostly blue, and that the title had something poetic about it. In the book, a girl dying of cancer describes herself as a grenade that will inevitably explode in her parents' lives. It is destined to happen. The only question is when. And the girl naturally doesn't want to be a grenade and tries to prevent the boy who is interested in her from falling in love with her. But of course it is too late, because he already is in love with her, because she's so goddamn clever and eloquent. And then he dies before her, and is her grenade. Why I'm thinking about this now is because I feel like I'm a grenade. Pain does that to me. It brings out my fatalistic side. But that's nonsense, because the literature says that people with MCAS can live for many years if they don't accidentally die first. The thing is, some of us with MCAS are lucky enough not to get an infection or need surgery, and then everything is fine. No problem. And so they live happily ever after. But if you're unlucky, you get sick, because treatment options are limited due to the risk of the MCAS sufferer dying from anaphylaxis or organ failure. The MCAS sufferer then dies from either the infection or the drug intended to fight the infection. Additional complications arise from the fact that mast cells release heparin-like chemicals, adding other possible causes of death, bleeding out, and blood clots, which can lead to cardiac arrest and strokes. All in all, not a particularly good chance of surviving an operation or an accident. That's the reason why I walk around day in and day out with a hat over my ears and wear a turtleneck or thick scarves so that I don't get sick. And I no longer ride bikes or electric scooters, because just breaking my arm will most likely cost me my life. That's why I'm doing my best in foregoing any fun, trying not to act as a bombshell in my parents' lives. You can really give me credit for that. Continuing with the book and the grenade analogy. On a scale of 0 to 10, How selfish is it to wish for friends? And how much does this number multiply when it comes to love? And can I even look myself in the eyes if I allow the destruction radius of the grenade that I am to increase exponentially with every human who starts to like me? Shouldn't I, as the responsible adult person that I am, do everything in my power to prevent this? That's the question the protagonist asks herself in the book, and it's an appropriate, plausible question that should, of course, prompt sufficient consideration. In the end, she doesn't give a shit. If you're going to die, then at least you have to really live first. And I'm inclined to position myself behind that argument, but of course I only do that because I'm the one who's dying. And I'm not the mother who loses her daughter or the younger sister who loses her older one. I ponder all these things while standing under the shower, and afterward I don't have to cry out quite so loudly while drying myself off. The hot shower has helped loosen my muscles. The bathroom is full of steam. I wipe the mirror and look at myself. The much too thin hair that hangs flat down and with which I look like a shadow of myself. The circles under the green eyes, the scars on my cheeks and forehead that are left from the skin lesions visible on my pale skin as reddish bulges. I don't want to think about how I used to look. The question is how I look going forward. I need the strength of a soldier to get through this. Why not look like one? I grab the nail scissors hanging from a magnet on the wall next to the sink, rinse them under water and use them to trim my hair. Strand by strand of my strawberry blonde hair falls into the sink until my fingers ache from the sharp edges of the scissors. I'm glad my parents don't say anything when a little later they find me dressed and with blow-dried hair sitting on the bench in the kitchen, the Frankfurter Rundschau, the German equivalent to The Guardian, open in front of me drinking a rice milk coffee. But Liesel can't help it. "What about the boy do?" she asks as I hand her a brownie wrapped in a white paper bag. "I was sick of the spaghetti," I reply. She peeks into the bag. "I thought you were bringing me lunch," she exclaims indignantly. "Sorry," I shrug. "The brownie looks so delicious, I just wished that I could eat it myself." That shuts her up. I look past her and into the shop, which I can't enter because a shelf of luxury scented candles is lined up against one wall. I can remember how they smell. Before I got sick, Liesel gave me one of the candles for my birthday. The scent was called Victory, and it brought tears to my eyes. It was so beautiful. My gaze falls on a young girl standing behind the counter doing something with her hands. I can't see what from the distance. "New trainee?" I ask. Liesel glances over the shoulder and the girl immediately looks up. "Nah, temp," says Liesel. She looks amazing again today with wide-rimmed glasses and purple lipstick. In addition, the black slacks and the pink Converse. Very pride. "Can you leave her alone and go eat something for half an hour?" Liesel narrows her eyes at the girl, and despite her dark skin, I can see a faint blush spreading across the girl's cheeks. She throws a look at Liesel, who is uncertain and a bit more, and I immediately see the light. Then Liesel interrupts my thoughts by saying, "If you're sitting around the corner on the market square, it's definitely okay." The shop where Liesel works is in one of the side streets of the upper town, a small dark alley that connects the market square with a bridle path. It sells stylish furniture, designer kitchenware, and everything else around the house. The last time I was able to go in, I bought a doormat for the front door that said "Hi" on one side and "Bye" on the other. I'm almost certain Mama and Liesel forgot to pack it. Damn. Liesel disappears into the shop, says something, and comes back a moment later with a handbag over her shoulder big enough to fit my gluten-free toaster. I told her to text me if anything. She ruffles the short bangs I cut this morning that I've dried wavy. "Looks cute," she says. "Like Ottolina." Ottolina is a character from a children's book that we both read when we were just out of primary school. "Let's swap shoes," I reply. Liesel looks at me like I've lost my marbles. "Why that?" "Well, because Ottolina always wore odd shoes. Don't you remember that?" "Of course not," says Liesel, shrugging. "It's been ages since I read that book." That makes me think. Maybe my memory isn't that bad after all. Or it is selective, and I only remember things that are not important. We sit down at one of the tables on the terrace of a cafe on the market square. Heaters have been set up to protect the guests sitting outside from freezing to death. Unfortunately, they aren't switched on because of Putin, or because of Merkel's naive, short-sighted energy policy, one could argue. Gerhard Schröder, that Russian-loving harlequin in designer suits, didn't serve her as the best advisor. We're the only ones outside, chattering away in the freezing cold, while everyone else is happily chatting away inside. Liesel orders a latte and a piece of quiche, I a glass of hot water. The waiter demonstratively waits to see if something else will follow, and I feel compelled to say, "Just the water, please. I brought my own food." Alarm! Alarm! I shouldn't have said that. The waiter looks at me as if he's choked on the droppings of the high horse he sits on. His eyeballs are literally popping out of his head. "Who ever heard of this?" he cries in disbelief. "Bringing your own food to a cafe?" I have MCAS, I try to explain, but it's too late. I should have said that earlier, and it's only after I've said it that it occurs to me that the waiter most possibly has no idea what MCAS is. Instead of the waiter's expression twisting into what could be interpreted as sympathetic, the indignation increases. Now it looks like I personally insulted him. "No, well, it doesn't work like that. I need to ask the manager if that's allowed." "Yeah, great idea," says Liesel with a mischievous smile. "Just bring the manager here. I'd love to have a chat with her." The misunderstanding is quickly cleared up, and in the end I even get my hot water for free and can sit in the cold with Liesel and eat cold chicken with cold broccoli and mushy gluten-free pasta. "And tell me about the temp," I say after the manager, who is a friend of Liesel and was more than happy to see her, has left. What should be with her?" "Well, she's giving you the looks." Liesel waves that off. "She's straight. She has a boyfriend." "Then she won't have him for long if she looks at you like that." Liesel shrugs and pops a large piece of quiche into her mouth. The quiche smells tempting. I imagine eating it instead of my bland, saltless meal. Salt is also one of my triggers. "I'm not interested in someone who isn't out. Too much drama." "No, it's exciting. Imagine how romantic it would be if she left her boyfriend for you and changed her entire life." "You don't change anything when you come out," Liesel replies a little impatiently. "Yeah, maybe you didn't, because you've known since you were 6 that you were into girls, and everyone around you knew that too. You took care of that. You even told people who didn't want to know." Some pigeons make their way in between the tables, looking for scraps. I throw them a piece of my gluten-free pasta. A brown and white pigeon pecks at it once, then leaves it lying in the dirt. I scoff offendedly. Not even pigeons like my food. "So what?" asks Liesel grumpily, because she doesn't like being reminded of her shared childhood, especially when I remind her of those embarrassing things she used to do. "What are you getting at?" I find that I've lost my thread. "I have no idea," I admit. "Tell me about Mark. What happened there? But hurry up, I don't have much time left." In a few sentences, I explain to her the underlying problem of my MCAS disease and its incompatibility with body fluids and Mark's inability to respect that. "Can't you do it with a woman? Maybe it's a sign of destiny telling you that you're actually gay." That she always wants to convert me. "I don't think destiny should be personalized, let alone intentional," I say, irritated by an attempt at proselytizing. "On the contrary, I'm convinced that the universe doesn't give a fuck who I sleep with. I mean, if it gave a fuck about anything that happened here on the planet, Putin would, in a rare instance of spontaneous human combustion, turn to ash." Liesel slaps me on the hand. "Do you always have to be so negative? Look at the bright side of what's happening to you." "You mean by bombarding myself with positive affirmations, I'm supposed to brainwash myself into believing that my illness makes sense?" "Yes, exactly that," says Liesel with a grin so wide it shows her pointy canines. All that's missing is the gold tooth gleaming in the sun. If there was sunshine, but today is one of these grim German autumn days, like one of the witches of the fairy tales with its henchmen, cold and wet. She stills in me the dread of 150 more winter days lying ahead. I look at her helplessly. "How?" She shrugs. "No idea. You need to find out." I roll my eyes as I bend down and tie the laces of my Converse so she doesn't see me. You never know with Liesel. She can be so sensitive sometimes. When I come back up, I say, I think the problem is the proteins. I pause a little significantly while Liesel looks at me blankly and silently. I don't think it makes any sense whether I'm with a woman or... I don't think it makes any difference whether I'm with a woman or a man, I continue, because there are protein structures in both the saliva and the secretions that I respond to. That's why these secretions are so sticky, because they contain glues, and adhesives are protein-based. Ah, says Liesel, wide-eyed, looking even more blankly. She moves her foot aside and accidentally pushes a brown and white pigeon over that just at that moment came over to investigate a few crumbs of Liesel's quiche that are lying scattered between the cobblestones. What I mean is, like how I respond to most proteins, I don't respond to all. Let's say meat. I respond to turkey, but not chicken. And I respond to pork skin, but not the pork itself. Slowly she seems to understand what I'm getting at, because now she nods. Maybe there are some people whose secretions I react to, but maybe there are people out there who don't hurt me, who don't make my immune system go totally hysterical. She opens her mouth in a big amazed oh. It looks like a jaw-dropped ah. That means there's someone out there made for you. I doubt he or she was made specifically for me, but they were created. No, nevertheless, I correct her. Perhaps with less capability of harming me with their body fluids than the average person, which would be the next step to find out, who that could be. Now, how do we find out who of all people isn't going to hurt you? Can you maybe take a saliva sample and put it on your skin, like an allergy test? I want to laugh at first, because that sounds totally silly, but then it dawns on me that is actually a really good idea. Lilo, that's a really good idea, I say. She leans back in the chair, satisfied. Liesel loves solving other people's problems, possibly because she finds it so difficult to solve her own. She completed her apprenticeship 2 years ago and still works in the interior design shop where she trained. And while she keeps bitching about how boring and uninspiring the job is, she doesn't bother to look for something more interesting. She dropped out of high school in 11th grade. She could easily go to night school, to do her A-levels and then apply to university, study interior or textile design or whatever she enjoys. So next time you go on a date, you have to get him to spit in a little plastic container. You could create some sort of interview process that candidates go through before you go on a date with them. I stare at her in disbelief. Do you see that? I point to my face. Yes, and? Do I look like one of the Kardashians? No, luckily not. Yes, unfortunately not. Interviews? Are you kidding me? No, I must do it secretly without anyone noticing. Who gets involved with something like that? Someone like me. Liesel gives me a reproachful look. Of course you'll find someone who loves you enough that he or she can overlook the fact that life with you is so stressful and complicated. That's the point, exactly. Say, I can't even get to the stage in which someone starts to love me because all this complicated shit is so off-putting that it won't ever go any further. What about people who know you from before? I'm sure some of your old classmates still live here. Only the losers who didn't make it out of here. Please excuse me, snaps Liesel. She even gets up from her chair. I still live here and I'm not a loser. Really? Yeah. What about night school? Did you finally sign up? She waves her hand like I'm a fly perched on her nose. Then she puts her thumb between her lips and chews her nail, which she always does when she's stressed thinking. Okay, I say, if you sign up for night school, I'll email my former classmates and invite them to a winter barbecue. And then we think of a party game where everyone has to spit to compete. She gives me a scrutinizing look, still thumbnail between her lips. Liesel loves parties and she loves drinking games. I can almost watch her doubts begin to evaporate. Can't we do this and I'm not going to night school? Nope. She tries the thunder gaze. But it doesn't work on me. I grew up with it and have become resistant to it. I'll have to think about that first, she finally says. If you're already thinking, then maybe you can also think about your temp. I give her my widest grin. but she remains unimpressed. I'm going now, she says abruptly. For a moment I fear